Hey, Julian here. If you're a regular listener, you might remember a story that we did last year about scammer farms. Most scams these days, they're being run by people living in slavery from these so-called scammer farms, and it's a pretty scary, bleak situation. So we've launched a new multi-part documentary series called Scammerland. You're going to hear some stories of people who have been abducted into this system and then escaped. And then we're going to really unpack how this business model got started, who runs it, and who is trying to stop it. It's on Apple Podcasts, but it's also on YouTube and Spotify if you'd like to watch the video version. That's Scammerland, out now.
G'day, America. It's Tony and Ryan from the Tony and Ryan podcast from Down Under.
Today we want to talk to you about Boost Mobile, the newest 5G network in the country.
These guys are no longer the prepaid wireless company you might remember. They've invested billions into building their own 5G towers across America, transforming the carrier into America's fourth major network alongside the other big dogs.
Yep, they're challenging the competitors by working harder and smarter, like this amazing new network they've literally built.
The Boost Mobile network, together with their roaming partners, covers 99% of the US population, but 5G speed's not available in all areas.
Yep, they have blazing fast internet and plans for all the latest devices. Visit your nearest Boost Mobile store or find them online at boostmobile.com.
Super real.
I was on my way home, there's no one around, and I can hear heavy rock music. I'm like, Jesus, somebody's having a party at 3 a.m. And as I'm getting closer and closer to our apartment, I realize it's coming from our house. And I open the door, and it's pitch black, except for the stereo. And I flicked on the lights, and in the kitchen, all of the cabinets were open, and all of the drawers were pulled out, and it was just like, oh my God, dude, no.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. So the other day, I was thinking about how I have never experienced anything supernatural. I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen a ghost. I can't even say I've had a dream that felt like a premonition. My life just all seems to happen very much in the material world. And honestly, I'm kind of mad about it. I'd just love to see a ghost. I would love to witness an alien abduction and, just something crazy, something weird, something that really blows off the cobwebs. But until that happens, the best I can do is this. Just sort of feature supernatural stories on the podcast, which is what we're going to do today. Today's episode, it's a haunted house story, and I love it. I just think that this one is really genuinely spooky. I'm going to speak to a guy named Nathan Munn, and he's a musician, he's a writer and a journalist, and he lives in Quebec, Canada with his 2 kids. And back in his early 20s, he moved into an apartment that he could only describe as haunted. And he wrote about the experience in 2022, and I've been thinking about Nathan's article ever since. And I promise you, even if you're a supernatural skeptic, I guarantee that you're going to end up basically agreeing with Nathan that there was something very wrong about his apartment. So that's enough preamble for me. Let's just hit this. Let's just dive right in. Here is Nathan Munn. Hey Nathan, welcome to the show.
Hey Julian, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so this story takes place when you were about 23.
That's right, yeah.
Do you want to tell me what was happening in your life at that time?
Yeah, for sure. So I had moved to Montreal from Ottawa a couple years before, specifically to play punk rock. I moved to start a band and to play music, and so I'd been doing that for a while. By the time we rented this apartment, it had been about a year and a half, working a little bit, mostly on welfare, just playing shows, recording songs, and and then we rented this apartment.
It sounds fun. Sounds like a good time.
It was fun, yeah, for sure. At 22, it's fun.
Yeah. I think we should establish something here. Did you grow up as a kid believing in ghosts? Or would you describe yourself at this point in your life as a skeptic?
No, I wouldn't say I was a skeptic or like then or now. I mean, I'm an artist and like I fully believe in like, the spirit world and like the human spirit and like that there's the universe and, and all that stuff. Like I'm not doing seances and I'm not like, playing with Ouija boards and stuff like that. And I'm not like, oh my God, I saw a ghost. Like not at all. Like I'm not a skeptic, but not fully willing to believe everything that I see. You know what I mean?
Sure. Okay. So tell me about how you came to inspect this apartment and what your first impressions were.
Yeah. So back then, the housing market was it was like a renter's paradise. There were so many apartments available. And then this place, it was priced really well and it was on De La Roche, which is a nice street that ends on Parc La Fontaine, kind of on the east side of Mount Royal. So I was like, oh, we go check it out. And so I made an appointment, went there by myself, and the landlord was there waiting. And there's lots of like little fourplex apartments in Montreal, and this was like a duplex, like a 2-story. So there was an apartment on the bottom, and then there was a stairwell on the outside of the building, and then the apartment on top. And it was like a brown brick building, very nondescript, 2-story. So I met the landlady there, and went up the stairs and opened in the place, and it was just so fucking weird. It was like really, really small, first of all, but the strange thing about it is that when you walked into it, someone had, like, this was a small, like 2-bedroom apartment, right? But somebody had spent, I don't know how much money, $20,000, $30,000 at least, doing all the walls in wood. So it was like a cottage. So you felt like you were in this tiny little wooden cabin, but you're in the middle of the city, but like all the walls, like polished pine, like really nice, and like a parquet floor, but it was so small. And then to have it so tricked out in wood, and then the countertops in the little kitchen area were like blood red, like a deep red melamine. And so it was just this feeling of like, what? Like, this is so weird. Like, who did this? Like, this is an apartment.
Yeah.
Like, why would you? But then it got weirder because she's like, okay, come in, take a look around. And it was spotless. The place was clean. No one was living there. So there was no furniture. So he came in, there's a little tiny kitchen, and it used to be a walk-in closet, but it had been converted into a bedroom off of the kitchen. So that was weird too, this really tiny little bedroom. But instead of normal opening doors, they had sliding doors of mirrors. So you're in this, it was like going into a hall of mirrors, this tiny little hallway,
Oh, yeah.
2 big mirrors right next to you and wood everywhere else. And then on the other side, the bathroom. And again, I don't know who spent $10,000, $15,000 tricking out this bathroom. So this tiny bathroom in a tiny apartment, but they had done it with a giant hot tub. So there's like this giant faux marble Roman style like hot tub that you'd have to like step up and get into. Everything's done in all the fancy wood, and then they have a double vanity sink with like brass. And honestly, when I saw it, I was like, whoever lived here and whoever did this had a coke problem, because that's what it seemed like. You know what I mean? It was like you'd have to be out of your mind on blow to do this. So anyway, that was my first impression, and so I said no thanks to the apartment. That was it. I was like,
You said no? I mean, I'm hearing luxe. And when you're 23, like this coked up, like pimp cottage luxe, I think it would really appeal to me. I'll be like, hell yeah.
well, and that's the funny part, right? Like, but it was so small, and like we're so spoiled in Montreal. We were so used to such big apartments, and like I didn't care about a hot tub, so I was like, nah, we'll find something better for sure. So I said no and left. But over the next couple days, I talked to my roommate about it, and he was like, oh, it sounds kind of weird. Maybe we should take a look or whatever. But it was like the image of it in my mind like changed. It was literally like, I could feel my mind changing. I was like, God, it was kind of cool though, you know? I was like, oh, that hot tub is so weird. And like, blah, you know, that's it. Like it was like I was convincing myself. And eventually I was like, yeah, let's go take a look again. And I can't remember if we went and saw it together or if he just took my word for it and said, well, let's just sign the lease. But so we signed the lease, then came move-in day. And this was when the weird shit started, because we showed up, like I was saying, the place was spotless when I visited it, immaculate, nothing. And so we show up on moving day with all our gear, me, my roommate, and I don't think his girlfriend had moved in yet. It was just the two of us. And the apartment is just as it was, totally immaculate. Everything's untouched, except there's a great big black feather lying right in the middle of that parquet floor.
Ooh.
Exactly. It was like, whoa, like it stopped me in my tracks because I was like, dude, I was here, a week ago and it was spotless. What the fuck?
When you say it was like a big black feather, are we talking sort of like big enough to be sort of a bit Harry Potter-esque, sort of like a deliberately purchased and placed feather, or a feather that could have potentially come through an open window from a bird?
Yeah, I'd say a bird feather, like a raven feather, like a foot long feather just laying there.
Oh,
one thing, nothing else,
A foot long feather is a big feather. That's not just some random feather. That's a serious feather.
No, that's it. And like very, very black and very like deliberate, and it was like, okay, whatever. And my roommate picked it up and we had a potted plant and he stuck it in the plant. And that was that. We were like, okay. And so that was that. But then that night, we get relatively set up and, whatever, hang out, play some video games, and then go to bed. And I had the worst fucking nightmare I've ever had in my life to this day. And it was just, honestly, it was horrifying. And I'll say what it was. So
yeah.
I just dreamt that I was in like a 1950s style house. Like the walls were all wallpapered with like flower print, ancient kind of wallpaper. And there was a little girl there, like 5 years old, in like a cute little dress and like little pigtails and stuff. And she was standing there and she said to me, she goes, "Will you stay?" And in the dream, I got down on one knee and I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't, I have to leave." And she looked at me and she goes, "You'd better get those people here and then she opened her mouth, I guess, to scream, and her eyes, the black, like her black pupils of her eyes, they both cracked like eggs, like egg yolks, and black shit just started flowing down her face like this. And she was like this, "You better get those people here," and it just, these things cracked out her face. And she was in this like frozen, in like a silent scream. Like, dude, honestly, even talking about it raises the hair on my neck. And I snapped out of bed, like, I was 23, and I was so fucking freaked out. I was like, oh my God, it was just the worst. And I kid you not, I slept with the light on for the next like week, 2 weeks, like seriously. Like I was not comfortable being in my room in the dark, and that's crazy. I mean, I was a grown man at that point. It's like, but dude, like even the thought of it now, it still gives me the shivers.
Yeah. I felt a bit of a shiver go up my spine when you were describing that. Little girls feature in horror movies fairly frequently, but the thing about like the cracked pupils and the black ink out of her eyes or whatever, like that's a fairly unique, I haven't seen that before. That's spooky.
Yeah, me neither.
But it sounds to me like at that point in your life, you weren't usually dreaming about little girls. You weren't a dad. You were just like, you're a punk rocker and you're hanging out with your buddies. Like that sounds like an unusual dream for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like it was so totally out of left field. Like that's it. It just made, it was very specific to the location I felt, you know what I mean? It was like, I'd slept like a baby for a year and a half before. We were living in a, shitty apartment on Papineau. It's like, so it wasn't, and that's it. I don't know what I was dreaming about that back then, but it sure as hell wasn't that, and so, yeah, that was, it was really disturbing. And yeah, and I slept with my light on for a solid week or two, at least after that.
So how were you feeling? We're only like 24 hours into your residency in this house. Were you kind of already like, there's something with this apartment, like this is weird?
For sure. Already I was like, oh shit, like what, like it's like, that's a really harsh first night, and
Yeah.
it was like, and I mean, I felt like at the same time, I was like, I couldn't take it too seriously at the same time. It was like, well, Jesus Christ, it was a dream, you know what I mean? And yeah, there was that feather, but that was weird, but it could have been anything. It could have been somebody who dropped it in here. It could have been an open window, it flew in. So I wanted to be reasonable about it too, in the sense that I'm like, well, you know, we're here now. We signed a lease. We're not going anywhere. You can't just break a lease, right? So we're there one way or the other. But yeah, that was the kickoff. And then, you know, in the weeks and months that came, a lot more weird shit started to happen.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
G'day, America. It's Tony and Ryan from the Tony and Ryan podcast from Down Under.
Today we want to talk to you about Boost Mobile, the newest 5G network in the country.
These guys are no longer the prepaid wireless company you might remember. They've invested billions into building their own 5G towers across America, transforming the carrier into America's fourth major network alongside the other big dogs.
Yep, they're challenging the competitors by working harder and smarter, like this amazing new network they've literally built.
The Boost Mobile network, together with their roaming partners, covers 99% of the US population, but 5G speed's not available in all areas.
Yep, they have blazing fast internet and plans for all the latest devices. Visit your nearest Boost Mobile store or find them online at boostmobile.com.
The wild thing is, looking back on it now, is how the entire time we were there was like this downward decline of bad shit happening, you know, not just in the apartment, but also in our lives, you know.
You felt like you were being subjected to a period of like misfortune.
It certainly felt that way. Like it felt like, you know, we were going down the drain, you know what I mean, is what it generally felt like. And I know we were all experiencing that to some degree in all of our own individual lives in our own ways, but then having our own experiences with the apartment too.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's ominous. So do you recall the next kind of moment, the next beat in this chronology?
I think the next one was when me and my housemate Andrew were hanging out, because I was a musician, so I had my guitar there, and he plays too, and so we were jamming, and again the living room was super super small, you know, so we had like a really small couch, a chair, TV set up, and then a stereo in the corner. And the stereo I brought from when I lived with my parents, and it was this little like 1990s 5 CD changer, and it has like these kind of lights on it does like a little light show.
I'm very familiar with that style of CD player.
You know, those ones. Yeah, so we had one of those. And so we're sitting there jamming, and the stereo fucking turns itself on. All of a sudden, it just started going, the CD changer inside. And we look at each other, and we're like, dude. And it does it for like a solid, you know, 30 seconds or whatever. It's doing something, and the lights are going on the front. I'm like, what the fuck? And then it stops. It picks a disc, and it starts playing. And it's Ray Charles. And it's Ray Charles singing a song where he goes, "I'll take her back again one more time." And then it stops.
Wow.
Just like that. And we both looked at each other, we're like, what the fuck? And went over and opened the stereo and pull it out, and sure enough, there's a Ray Charles CD in there. But the song, it wasn't the first song on the disc. It was like song 5 or 6 or whatever. And the line that was sung, the first instance of that line was in the chorus, and it didn't occur till like a minute into the song, or like 40 seconds or whatever. So the machine had turned itself on, selected the disc, selected the song, and selected the moment where it started to play, and then it stopped right after it said that line. And we were just like, but and I think that was the point where we were like, this place, man, what is going on in this place?
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, let's pack it up, and we just called it a night.
Oh,
And,
so it put you off. It, like this moment, it just ruined the mood enough for you to be like, let's call it.
Oh yeah, like you know, and it might sound really insignificant this many years later, and hearing it as third hand, but it was the feeling more than anything, and so it felt like the machine was smiling at us. You know what I mean? Like it was as if it had a personality. It was like, what do you think of that? You know, like that's what it felt like, and it was like, ew, this is so fucking creepy. I can't. And
it's so cryptic though. It's not like that's a particularly useful phrase. It's not like, let's say that some ghost in the apartment is controlling the CD player and it plays you a phrase. If the phrase was like, check under the floorboards, you'll find a little box and it'll explain what's going on, that would be useful. But instead, it's just this meaningless phrase out of this song.
yeah, and what stuck with me was only that I'll take her back again one more time, and her, right? So, and I think of the little girl from the dream. So that was how it made sense in my head, as it was like, okay, it's talking about a her. I had a dream about this girl. Something happened here.
I know this is a hard question to answer, but I'm guessing that at this time you guys were speculating about like what had happened in this apartment. Was there some conversation about like the history of this place? What and do you have any ideas, like any theories?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. We started talking about it, definitely. Like, it came to a point later on, like a few months later, after other things had happened, we talked about it casually, like, oh yeah, the girl, you know, or like, oh yeah, the apartment, like, ooh, the apartment's feeling weird today, or you know what I mean? Like it became a part of our daily lives, you know, like it was it was like a member of the house, right? And
Right.
yeah, for sure we were speculating, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like, and you know, and it's all speculation, right? Like there's no, I tried looking up property records and stuff, and tried looking up old news articles and stuff like that, and I didn't find anything related to the property. But that's it. Speculating, I always felt like that somebody, like a young woman, maybe had died there, you know, and maybe under some terrible circumstance or whatever, and that her, you know, it's honestly hard to talk about, but like, because there's like an emotional resonance there, you know what I mean? Because this thing, it was a presence, right? Like it wasn't just, oh, weird things happen and these discrete things. It's like, no, it was all part of one thing, and it was part of one feeling that stuck with all of us so strongly over the years that like we never forgot it, and we talked about it. You know, it would come up from time to time, and then when I was writing the story and reached out to them, and they were like super stoked to talk about it, and they remembered everything. And memories change over time too, right? Like in the story, when I talked to our friend Anna, who was Andrew's girlfriend at the time, and she was living there, and she remembered experiencing something that I thought that I experienced. And it was the same story, but she thought she saw it, and I thought that I saw it. So after 20, 30 years, who knows who's right, right?
Right, okay. Yeah, the memories all get sort of blurred and twisted around.
Big time.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. I mean, I guess I've got another question, though, just about like, because if it's me, in a place like this, just because I'm obsessed with stories and, you know, stories of my life, you too, I'm like, all right, well, let's try to unpack this. Like, what's happened here? Who's this girl? Like, what's with all of the paneling? Like, does this somehow click together in any way? Is like, who was the previous owner? Who was the person with the just like terrible sense of interior decoration who either like traumatized some little girl or like what? I'd be into detective mode if that was me. And I'm wondering if there was any part of that for you.
Well, and it's funny, you know, because you're right. Like if it had been me 10 years later, I would have been the same. I would have been like, start digging, like head down to the archives and start asking around the neighborhood and stuff like that, right? Journalist thinking, writer thinking.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't think that way at all because I was, I was just, I didn't write back then other than songs. And all I was interested in was the next show, the next party. And so it was very much living minute to minute. And so I wasn't in an investigative mindset at all. Like I was certainly curious, but that wasn't where I was at. You know what I mean? It wasn't part of my life to go out and do that.
Okay. So what happened next?
After that, what was the next thing that happened? Oh my God. Oh Jesus. This was the worst. Oh fuck. So I was out at a party or whatever, and I had a couple beers, and I was on my way home. It was like 3 a.m. There's no one around, and I can hear heavy rock music. I'm like, Jesus, somebody's having a party at 3 a.m. And as I'm getting closer and closer to our apartment, it's like getting louder. It's like behind closed doors, but it's getting louder. And I'm like, and then I realize it's coming from our house. I was like, what the fuck? So I start coming up the stairs from outside, and when you came up the stairs from the outside, there was 2 windows. There was the window to my bedroom, which was all totally dark. And then there was the window into the living room that the door opens into, and it was totally dark. And I opened the door, and it's pitch black, except for the stereo. Like, I can't remember what music it was playing, but it was heavy and it was loud. And that light show on the front of the stereo was just, fuck it. And that's the only light in the room. It's blasting music. I'm like, dude. And I flicked on the lights, and in the kitchen, all of the cabinets were open and all of the drawers were pulled out. 7 or 8 individual cabinets, and then all these drawers, all done in the wood like the rest of the apartment, and everything was open and all pulled out. And it was just like, honest to God, it was so fucking scary. It was just like, oh my God, dude, no. Oh. Came in, turned off the stereo, unplugged it, closed all the drawers, closed the cabinets, and went to bed, and like closed my room door. And it was just like, oh my God. Went to bed, or that's how I remember it. And so, and I woke up in the morning, and Andrew and Anna came out of their room, and when they did, I was like, did you guys hear the music last night? And they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, I came home at 3 a.m, and the music was fucking blaring in here, and it was pitch black. And they're like, we didn't hear anything. And their door was attached to the kitchen. Like, you're in the kitchen, you open the door, there's their bed, and they didn't hear anything. And all that tells me is that music must have been playing for like, it must have started the second I got on the street, you know what I mean? Or it's like, I have no explanation for it. It was so loud. And it was, that was disturbing. After that, I was like, we need to get out of this fucking place. I was like, something is seriously wrong here. Like, it was too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of any explanation. Like if the stereo started up in my house, even if I was asleep, I'd just wake up and be like, oh my God, what is going on? Yeah. And they were acting as though they didn't even hear it, both of them as well. It was like they were living in some sort of weird force field, parallel dimension stuff.
Exactly, right? Like different realities happening at once. Like,
yeah. Was, so... You referred to this, like you said before, like the little girl, like this, like how's the little girl doing today, like that kind of thing. Which, but the only time you've interacted with this little girl is in your dream. So did your housemate have the same dream?
I know my roommate Andrew said that he had a dream of a girl standing up on a rooftop, and that was I think the only dream he had related to it. And yeah, that's as much as I remember from him. And, and obviously, like if I was telling a story about a nightmare I had about a little girl, it's totally understandable if somebody picks up that idea and has a dream of their own, right? Like, it's like, I totally understand how, it's like any ghost story, right? Like you can always point at details and say, well, this could have happened and that could happen. And it's like, of course, like I have no illusions. Like all this could have been in our imagination. You know, I'm fully willing to admit that this could have been some subjective experience that however it happened. But the reality is I've lived in a lot of places, a lot of apartments, a lot of different places, like dozens. And I've never lived in a place like this where a bunch of stuff like this happened. And that wasn't even, I mean, that was the scariest, the one, that one I just told of coming home that night with the cabinets and everything. That was the scariest because it was the most physically intimidating in the sense that it was like the spirit or whatever the fuck it was had like taken over the room for that moment. You know what I mean? Like the music, the darkness with the blaring music and the laughing stereo, like that was like, it was like something out of a movie. Like it was fucking horrifying. But I remember one night, was at home by myself, and by this time the stereo had gone again. The same thing with the same Ray Charles song. A night when I was there alone. And by that point it was hardly even surprising. It was like, it was more like horrifying. It was just like, oh God, like it made me nauseous to hear it again. But so that happened. And then a little while later, a month or so, whatever later, I was sitting at home alone and I heard a thump, thump, thump outside. And my first thought was like, oh, Jesus Christ, what now? Like what? Expecting something to do with the ghost or whatever. And then, so I ran over and opened the door and looked down the stairs going outside. But it was Andrew, my housemate. And by this time it was winter. And he was crumpled up in a ball at the bottom of the stairs outside, clearly in distress. So I ran down and grabbed him, started helping him up, and his face was all bloodied. And I got him upstairs, and we got to the kitchen sink, and he's spitting out blood, and he had been mugged. He had gotten into a fight with a group of guys because he worked downtown. So he'd gotten beat up really badly, and he was his face was all swollen, and he was like, dude, get me the rum. And it was like gushing blood into the sink.
Oh, man. And
it was brutal. And, you know, it hurts to see your friend, you know, in such rough shape. And it was just like, holy shit. So that felt significant at the time too, you know. It was like just one other thing that was kind of adding on to this series of negativity. And I had like, I had been with a girl for quite a while, and then we'd broken up. And so I was going through that, and I had a really scummy job at a telemarketing place, and then that I quit, and so I was super broke, and anyway, the thing, and you know, I mean, that's all my fault, you know what I mean? And like individual circumstances and stuff, I'm not saying, you know, it had anything to do with the apartment, but there was still this general sense of everything was on the decline in the apartment as all this weird shit was happening. But that was a big one for me. That was the one where I was like, okay, we need to get out of here. So over the next couple months, we were like making ads and trying to get someone to take over our lease. Finally, a guy came, and then, dude, this was so fucking weird too. So we had a couple people visit the house, and they're like, or like visit the apartment. They're like, nope, we don't want this place. And then, one guy came, this guy named Kurt, big, tall, kind of funny. He was older than us. He was like 30. And he was from Washington, D.C. And he was living in Montreal. And he was like this kind of oddball guy. But he came and saw the place. And at first, he said the exact same things that I did. He was like, it's too small. Too small for the price. Not really into it. Nice to meet you. He was a nice guy, though. And we like sat down and we smoked a joint. And he was chill. And off he went. And then a couple days later, he called me and was like, hey, I've been thinking about that apartment. He's like, that's pretty cool with the hot tub and everything else. Like it was like the same process that had happened to me. Like it was, he had said no initially, and then it wormed its way into his brain. And then he was like, yeah, no, this is pretty cool. Can I come check it out again? And so he came and saw it again. And by this point, we were desperate to get rid of this place, or I was desperate to get rid of it anyway. I was like, enough of this shit, man. And so I wasn't being fully forth. I wasn't like, this place is haunted, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not saying shit. If he wants it, he can have it. I'm out. And like, I was in like self-preservation mode. And so anyway, he came by a second time, looked all around, and was like super into it. And he's like, yeah, I want the place. This is great. I was like, cool. So we set it up, and he came, and we had a meeting with the landlord, and we signed over the lease and everything. And I was like, fucking yeah, we did it, you know, which is shitty of me, obviously. Like I feel bad about it now that I hadn't said anything to him. But that's how, yeah, I mean, that's it too, right? It's
you
like,
wanted to just get out. Like you were stuck. It was either that or get stuck there forever.
And that's what it felt like. And it's like, at that point I was like, I can't do this anymore. So signed the lease, everything's cool. And then it was time to move. So we did all our moving, and we got all our stuff out and everything. And then it was the last day, and I'm there by myself. And there was just a few last little boxes, and I'd swept up and everything. And I was going to take a cab with the last few boxes to my new apartment. And I was like, you know what? I was like, when is the next time I'm going to have a hot tub? I was like, probably never. I was like, might as well have a last hot tub, you know? So the whole time we had lived there, we had used the hot tub all the time. Like I'd had a couple hot tubs a week for sure. You know what I mean? All the time. And so the way it works is come to the bathroom, great big hot tub. And the jets are, there's a bunch of tiny holes, like, about the size of the end of a pencil, all along the bottom of the inside of the hot tub. That's where the air pressure comes out to create the bubbles. So there's all these little holes. And to turn it on the wall, there's a dial like you'd see in a hotel or something, where you turn it and then you get 10 minutes, like tick, 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 and it's running. So whatever. I fill up the tub, get undressed, turn on the jets, as I'd done dozens of times since I lived there. Turn it on, and I hear it start up. And by the time I turn around and look at the water, black shit, like black liquid, shot out of every one of those holes on the bottom around the inside of the tub simultaneously at once.
Oy.
And dude, it was, you know how when you see something out of the corner of your eye, like if you see something move out of the corner of your eye, your imagination will almost finish it. Like it's a known phenomenon, right? Like if you see a speck of dirt on the ground and you see it out of the corner of your eye, you'll think it's a bug or something, right? Like it's an evolutionary thing. When I turned and looked at the water and saw at that exact moment black shit shoot out of these like dozens of little holes all at once, in my mind's eye, or in my eyes, what I saw was bugs coming out of the holes. Like it was, that's what my mind saw it as, like as if there were tons of like ants coming out of these holes all at once or whatever. So I looked, and just like this flood of black, and I was like, oh my God. And I turned around and I switched off the dial. And by the time I turned back, the entire water was black.
Why?
Like black, dude. Like ink black.
Yuck.
And like, it's hard to state what that felt like. It was like watching someone walk through a wall or something. You know what I mean? Like it defied the laws of physics, or like of reality as you understood them. And this was at like 2 p.m. Like I was totally sober. I hadn't smoked a spliff. You know what I mean? I was moving. Like I was getting ready. I'll have a quick hot tub before I go. And then this fucking happens. And it was just like that instant of seeing that black shit all at once. And yeah, that's it. So it was full of black water. And I mean, this was the last day. So by then I was hardly, I mean, it was shocking and it was scary, but by that point, nothing would have fully shocked me. You know what I mean? Like so much weird shit had already happened. And so I reached into the tub, into the black water, and I pulled the plug, and the water all rushed out because I wanted to see. I wanted evidence. Like I wanted tangibly to. I was like, what is this shit? And so all the water ran out, and it left just a little bit of residue behind. And I picked it up, and I felt it with my fingers, and it was like ash. You know what I mean? Like black, disintegrating little shit.
Ash.
And
Ash is interesting.
And like obviously from a reason perspective and from a plausibility perspective, there must have been some residue build up in the pipes, in the jets or whatever, that at that moment decided to come undone, and you know what I mean? The pressure forced it out, and it was just a bunch of crap stuck in a pipe, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that I had used it dozens of times with no issue, no nothing, always clean, always fine, always perfect, and that this very last day, this very last hot tub, as you know what I mean? Turn it on and just flooded with black shit. And it felt like whatever was in that house was saying, fuck you. It was like, get out. You know, that's what it felt like. It felt like a specific. Yeah. And I was like, I am so glad to be out of this place. And I got dressed and I called the cab and that was it.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like. Oh man, what an exit. What a goodbye.
Exactly, right? It was a full send off. And then, and it didn't end there, you know? I mean, and that's when, so Kurt took over the apartment. Yeah. And because he was from out of town, I was his weed connection. So anytime he wanted some weed, he would call me up and I'd come over and whatever. So after he took over, he'd call me up and, I'd come by and, we'd smoke whatever and nothing out of the ordinary.
So you'd go back to the apartment that you'd left? Yes,
I'd go back, to go see him. And, which might sound crazy, but at that point, it was no longer my apartment, right? So it was like, I was divorced from it. And I was scraping by poor. So whenever this guy wanted to score a bag of weed, that meant that I, got a nice chunk of weed for myself kind of thing. It was like so, but yeah, and I felt like shit, it's not my apartment anymore. I could swing by and hang out for an hour and no big deal. But he called me about 3 months in and he was like, dude, has anything weird ever happened to you in this apartment? And I was like, I'm not sure. I was like, what do you mean? What's happening? And he was like, my girlfriend hates this place. He's like, at first she would like tolerate it, but now she won't sleep here anymore. And he was like, she said that she felt someone touch her on the shoulder and she's dead serious and she won't sleep here anymore. And it's like a problem. We're like fighting about it. And I'm like, fuck, dude. I'm like, that's rough. I was like, I don't know. And I might have told him at that point, like when he started to tell me this story, I might have admitted like, oh, I had a bad dream once or something like that. But I didn't get into the whole story. But yeah, so his girlfriend, and then later, like a month later, he called me again and he was like, dude, this apartment, he's like, I got a puppy and the puppy just sits in the corner and barks up at the ceiling, like constantly. Like the dog won't quit. And he said also too, the lights would flick on and off when he would go to a different room and behind him, he would see the lights going off and on in the living room and stuff like that. And that never happened to me. Like we never saw light stuff like that, but he did. So it was just like, to me, that was like the cherry on top. That was like, dude, this place is like, there's something really fucked up about this place. And he experienced it too. And this is how I ended the story, or not ended the story, but this was part of the epilogue of the story as I wrote it, which is true, is he he bailed. He skipped out on the last month of the lease. Like he got the fuck out of Dodge too, you know?
Like after you guys had that call, you didn't know this, but he was like, I'm just going to check in with Nathan and then I'm going to bail.
Yeah. And we didn't find out till we got sued by the landlady.
Oh,
And
no.
because he had we had assigned him our lease, so we were legally responsible for anything he did. So because he skipped out early, she sued us in the housing court, and it took like 2 years to wind its way through. And then all of a sudden I got a summons in the mail. You got to go to court. So we went to court, and she wouldn't even look at us. She wouldn't look us in the eye. And I mean, that's like, you know, just a mean landlord. But she was just like, nope, sued us, got $800 out of us, and that was that.
Jeez. Okay. And then the other beat in this story that I found really interesting was because I found this story, you wrote this up as a big article in 2022, and I read this, you know, in Australia, so it, you know, it had made its way around the world, and you described an experience that you had after writing this article. Could you take me through that?
Yeah, that was that was the most recent fucking chapter in this was so I live now out in the suburbs in a great small town, you know, 45 minutes outside of the city. We live in a house here. I've, you know, lived in apartments my whole life, never lived in a house before. Anyway, we moved out here. We have 2 kids. So 2022, my son would have been 3. So I was in the middle of writing the article, and I wrote it over the span of like a week, you know, a couple hours a day kind of thing. And I work from home in my day job. So I'm home a lot, obviously. But anyway, so I'd been writing this story for about a week. And just about as I was finishing it, I was here alone with the kids. My son was 3 and my daughter would have been 6 at the time, or 7. And we heard, me and the kids were eating upstairs, and we had a cat, a different cat at the time, and it was a super quiet cat, like it never meowed. And then we're eating, and we hear the cat make this crazy meow, like and we're like, oh God, you know, and so we ran down to the basement to see what was happening. And the cat was sitting in the corner over here, staring up at the wall. And, you know, whatever, cats do weird shit all the time, no big deal. So we came down, but it was kind of weird because I was in the headspace of the story, you know what I mean? And anyway, came down and my kids were like, oh, or my daughter was like, I wonder what the cat's upset about. I'm like, oh, maybe she saw a mouse or whatever. And meanwhile, as we're talking about it, my son has come over, and we have a drawing board here. You can't really see it here, but anyway, we have an easel that with a whiteboard kids can draw. Nice. And so he was 3, and he had picked up a marker and started drawing on the whiteboard. And I came over, and I was like, let's head upstairs. I was like, what are you drawing there, bud? And he goes, this is an apartment. And he goes, and I'm drawing a map to it. And I hadn't told him what I was writing about. I hadn't told the kids anything because it was too scary. I wasn't going to tell them about it. And like, dude, he's 3. Like, you don't, like, 3-year-olds don't usually say the word apartment. You know what I mean? Like, it was.
That's true.
And yeah, straight up, like, and he was drawing, and he was just like, this is an apartment, and this is a map to it. And I was just like, oh my God. Okay, let's go upstairs now. And
rub that off. Rub that picture off. You've done better ones.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. And so yeah, for what it's worth, that was
Jeez,
that.
Man. So when you were writing this thing, because I understand you reached out to your old housemates as well, and they had some different memories, and you guys, it sounds to me like you had your sort of first kind of like, hey, let's revisit that period in our lives. Let's really talk about it. So what did you learn from that?
Well, I mean, the one thing that was unequivocal is that we were all like, that place was really fucked up. It was really creepy. There was something deeply wrong with it. We don't know what it was, but was too weird. And I should mention too that like we had friends over a lot, and like other people would have nightmares. Like I remember a friend of ours slept on the couch and she woke up in tears and was like, "Oh my God, I had the worst dreams." And so it was a vibe, you know, like it was a whole experience, that place. But they remembered all the same events, with the only difference being is that Anna remembered that she, in her memory, she was sleeping alone at the apartment and got up and opened her bedroom door into the kitchen and saw all the drawers pulled out and the cabinets open. And so that was her memory of it.
Okay, so this is what you were talking about earlier, how this sort of recollection, it got flipped. So she thought that, had she heard the music, or like the music wasn't playing?
Yeah, no. For her, her memory of it was that she woke up in the morning, like it was morning time, daytime, and she was alone at the apartment and came out and saw all the cabinets open and the drawers open. And my memory of it is that I came home at 3 a.m, middle of the night, and flicked on the lights and this was on with the music blaring and everything. So I don't know who, like, it's like implanted memory, right? Like if you know, somebody tells you a story and you build your own memory of it, like people do that all the time, right? Like it's a common thing. So I don't know whose version is true, but considering how elaborate my memory of it is, and that it was like I was walking home and like went up the stairs and to me, and of course I'm sure anybody would say the same thing, but to me my memory is the most, it's like a vivid memory. Like you couldn't convince me that it didn't happen, right? But I'm fully willing to admit that I could be misremembering that for sure.
Yeah. Unless you didn't close all the cabinets, or unless maybe if you think you did, then maybe they just reopened themselves in the middle of the night again.
And that's totally possible. I mean, the things that happen in that house are, you know, like how do you make stuff up like that? You know what I mean? Like I couldn't have, like that hot tub, and like I couldn't make that up if I tried. And it was like fucking noon or 2 p.m. on a, you know what I mean? Like there was no, like that happened and it was nuts. It's like all these things happened in one form or another.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really come to this story with like a true or false kind of framework around it. Like the objective of hearing this story from you isn't to like find out if ghosts are real or not. That to me feels like the least interesting part of this. I think we can say definitively that was a bad apartment. Some spaces are just kind of bad. But if we kind of unpack what the assumption here is, that something in the past happened to a little girl, maybe, or just like something bad happened in the past and the energy was somehow absorbed by this apartment, then like I do kind of wonder why that got channeled into essentially like elaborate pranks. Like it feels to me like this apartment was trying to prank you the whole way through. Like sort of cryptic stuff with the stereo and like the weird dirt in the jets. You know, none of this is like an effort to really communicate anything meaningful. It's just like a series of strange pranks. And then I'm kind of like, well, what's that about?
That's a really good call. And that really reminds me of how it felt at the time, which was, and this is going to sound really weird, but what I felt more than anything from the presence in that house was that it wanted to party. It wanted, and it's so weird to say. It's so, and like, you know, and the reason I'm like so open about that I'm willing to be skeptical about my own memories and experiences too is just because I find this so mind-boggling too, right? Like even though I experienced it and this all happened, it still blows my mind, and it's still like I feel the need to tell people, like I'm willing to admit that I might be wrong, so they understand that I'm like, you know, I'm not trying to make up a wild story, you know what I mean? It's like, no, dude, this is what happened. I have no fucking explanation for it. But yes, the party thing, dude, there was something about, and it comes right back to what the girl said in the dream at the very beginning when she said, "You'd better get those people here." And then the eyes go. But so and you know, when you wonder about like the investigative factor and like why, like were we trying to figure out what it was and all stuff like that, that's where that element kind of took place. We would try and decode that, like think like, what does she want? What is she talking about? Like, better bring those people here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, do you want us to bring investigators here? Do you want us? But again, that's what I felt like intuitively, which is so strange, that this presence and you know, there was the dream about the little girl, but the presence itself in the place, it didn't, you know, it's not like it was personified as a little girl. It was like some demonic fucking presence, whatever it was. Or maybe not even demonic. Like, I don't even want to offend whatever that thing was by calling it demonic. And that, like, that's serious. Like, I don't want to offend it. Like, I want it to be like, I respect whatever energy you are. Because there was some deep pain there, but whatever it was like it wanted to party. And that's a really strange feeling, but that's what it was. And I think that speaks to the nature of that apartment and whoever lived there and whatever went down in that apartment. Maybe it was in the context of a party. And there's some need of this thing to come back to that or something. And because it's like I was saying, like how they had speakers rigged up in every room, right? Like it was a party house, like hot tub, vanity sinks. Again, it was like a coke house, you know, and like a weirdo vibe and like speakers everywhere and wired for sound. And you know, it had a giant walk-in closet. So somebody was into fashion to some degree, clearly. And so, and the mirrors, you know what I mean? Like it was all, it's hard to describe. Like I wish I had some good photos to show of it too, but all of these things combined to create this really gaudy, weird party atmosphere. You know what I mean? And maybe it was just that atmosphere of the apartment that makes me think that's whatever this presence was, that's what it wanted. But that's what I consistently felt. And it's interesting to talk about it because that's one element that I haven't thought about since. And I didn't talk about it in the story because it didn't come to me. But when you ask, like, what was it trying to communicate? That reminded me. It wanted
the
to party.
vibe. It also reminds me of The Ring. I don't know if you remember that sort of same period, early 2000s. The Ring.
That's true. Eh? Yeah.
Also features a little demonic girl, but also I think the end, like the sort of the conclusion of that movie was just this thing about how she didn't want to be alone. Like, and the whole thing about like getting the videotapes spread around was just like her effort to be seen and heard by as many people as possible.
Wow.
And that feels to me like a similar vibe. Like that house also was freaking people out, but then it would kind of work on their brains like a sort of siren where a couple of days later they'd be like, no, I kind of want to be at that house. Like, what is this?
Absolutely. That's it, man. It was like a seduction. Like watching it happen to Kurt, I was freaked out by that because it was like, dude, the exact same thing that happened to me. Like, no, and then, oh, maybe, and then, yeah, I want it. Like, it was like, what a strange thing. And you said it. I mean, that's exactly it. It was like, it was more pranky in the beginning. It felt more pranky. And then once it became clear that we were like trying to get out of there, it felt more malevolent, you know? Like it felt like that the last day, the hot tub thing, that felt like a real, like just, yeah, it was repulsive. You know what I mean? Like it was really like, yeah, you just don't want to, like anger there, you know?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I've been nice to you. I showed you my best tricks. And now this is what you've done to me. This is how you repay me.
Yeah. Dude, seriously, that's exactly how it felt.
Yuck.
Yeah.
So
it was dark.
So
Big time.
Off. Oh man. Is the apartment still there? So you're still in the same city, right? Yeah?
Yeah. I go to Montreal all the time, and I walked down there, I guess it was last summer. We went to go take a look at it, and just walk by, and there was a flower pot out front, and like somebody who's clearly living there. And but I wasn't going to knock, that's for sure. I was just like, cool. If they're at peace and things are good, then awesome.
Wow. Okay. So where does this story sort of sit in your life these days? When you look back on it, you're like, yeah, for sure, I've had some sort of like supernatural experience.
Well, I mean, to be totally honest, there's no doubt in my mind that it was a supernatural experience, for sure. Like it was, and that's something that in my mind and in my heart, I mean, that just happened, it was, it was, the word for it was an encounter, it was an encounter with something that I don't understand, and that's why I'm so like, I'm willing to disbelieve my own experiences up to a point, and then it's like, but you can't tell me that didn't happen, and that's all there is to it, right? And the best thing about it is that 2 other people were there with me, and they went through it, and anybody who slept at that house felt something, and the guy who moved in after went through it. So it's like, it wasn't just me, it was that place, and that's it. It was an encounter that I have no explanation for other than the clues and mysteries that came with it. And now it's a neat story of something that happened. It was a place and time. But I'll tell you, I have a deep, deep, deep respect for whatever's there. And I don't speak of it lightly. Like speaking about it with you, it's like, imagine you went out on a walk in a field one night and you met a massive wild horse, like imagine a massive horse came galloping up out of the woods up to you and stopped in front of you, and like you saw its magnificence and you were like, Jesus Christ. And then it galloped off, it feels like that. It's like another creature that is powerful and that you respect, and that you would never, like, that memory of that experience would live on in your mind and your heart forever, right? And you would never be like that stupid horse or something. You know what I mean? Like it imprints itself on you. And this was that profound, to the point where when I wrote about it, I was really careful about how I wrote about it. And, I wouldn't say reverential, but respectful, that, hey, this is something I don't understand. It crosses across space and time. I'm just going to talk about it, and hopefully that's okay, And I think anybody who's ever experienced something that they can't explain, or like seen a UFO or something, which I never have, but I know people have, and I know, watching interviews with people like that and stuff, you see the degree of respect that they have for those experiences too, and they're like, I don't know what it was, but it's a profound thing, and that's how I feel about this.
Yeah, I can imagine I'd be the same. It's like my usual understanding of how the world works is also sort of like, I don't know, it's all a bit surface level, a bit sort of mundane. And then you just peer through this little chink in the wall, and you peer out into the great beyond. And then you're like, well, whatever that is, whatever is going on out there, I don't understand it, but there's something going on.
Absolutely.
I imagine that would have a similar effect on me. So when you tell this story to friends and family, around, you're at like a dinner party and you wheel out your haunted apartment story, like, how's it received? Do usually people sort of tune in and sort of respect it with you, or do you find you get some pushback?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever felt any pushback. I think anybody I've ever told the story to can see that I'm telling my truth of it, like that. I'm just telling it the way I experienced it, and that it's not a put on, or you know what I mean. And so no, I've never had anybody be like, oh, come on. It's like, anybody I've ever told it to, and I don't tell it a lot, you know what I mean? It's not something that I trot out. And that's what writing's for, you know what I mean? It's like if I write it once and nail it, then it's like, hey, if you want to read the story, go ahead. So I don't have to tell it over and over again. Well, you know what I mean? And I mean, I think any story, you tell it too many times, it loses its power, you know what I mean? So this is the only time I've ever spoken about it in a public forum like this, and it's the only time I ever will, you know? It's like, I wouldn't do another podcast, because it's like, you know, that doesn't make any sense, but it's, so yeah, no, and anybody I've ever told it to has received it, you know, as far as I can tell, and have been like, wow, that's intense. And it's like, yep, that's what it was, you know, and plenty of other people out there have plenty of stories along those same lines, you know, and I can't think of many people who I've met who have stories like that, like haunting stories and stuff. But one neat one that I read was reading Dave Grohl's book, Foo Fighters Nirvana guy. He put out his book Storyteller, and it's a great book of stories of his whole life. And he talks about how he had the first house he bought in Washington State, how it was haunted, and he talks about his experience there, and that, I mean, it really hit home when I read it. It was like, there's somebody who's been through something similar, you know?
Yeah. There's a part of me that's kind of a bit envious, you know, just also just the fact that you've, you know, had some sort of brush with the unknown. Thus far, my life has been very sort of based in the material world. But, you know, I'm open to it. To any ghosts listening out there, I'm open to it.
You never know.
Yeah, never know. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for walking me through this experience. It's truly
my
wild.
pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me on and for inviting me and wanting to hear the story. And it's really great to meet you, Julie.
By the way, Nathan has just released a couple of new songs. I said at the start he was a musician. He's referred to it a few times throughout this episode. And if you want to show your appreciation for Nathan's story, go listen to his music. He's called Nate Munn on Spotify, and we're going to link out in the show notes. It's really cool stuff. Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffery. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. A big, giant, very heartfelt thanks to our interns, Nina Fussell and Ellie Dickey. And this whole thing has been a Super Real production.